I'm Julia Boorstin, and I'm here with Maverick Carter, the CEO of SpringHill. Mav, thanks so much for talking to us today. It's been about a year since you announced a roughly $100 million raise for the company. Tell me what's been going on in the past year, and how has your mission and your vision for this company really evolved?
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to see you today. I think, the truth is, it's almost been more than a year, actually, because we closed our fundraise last March. Literally, we closed it that Wednesday, I'll never forget, it was March 11th, the day the NBA, which was the beginning of the end, when the NBA postponed the games that night and sent the players who were already on the floor back to the locker room. And I got an email 4 hours before that we had gotten the last sign off. And the truth is, it's been a lot of work. We took 3 companies that were all our companies, uninterrupted, the robot company, SpringHill Entertainment. We brought them together. It's been a lot of work on the people side, just bringing people together, leveling all that. But the truth is, our mission of empowerment, it's a grand mission, right? Empowering every individual, doing that through content, entertainment, and brands. It truly has gotten sped up and is a mission that people believe in and feel more than we ever anticipated. Empowering every individual starts with the people who work at our company, and most importantly, because we're a creative company, it starts with our talented group of creators that work at the company. We used to call it the creative group. Now we actually call it DAR, D-A-R, which stands for Department for Abnormal Results. And that then permeates to the unbelievable talent and creators we've gotten to work with, athletes, directors, writers, who really understand our mission, get it. They know we walk it, we live it. We're not going to get everything right, but we are truly out to empower creators. And that mission is something people can feel, something people can climb onto. And then it's our job as a company to make that come to life in the content and the entertainment and the brands we create. Then how do we make those brands come to life?
And empowerment started originally with athletes, but now it's about much more than that. And I think about the documentary you just did on the Tulsa race massacre. Tell me sort of how you think about empowerment as sort of broadly as possible.
Yeah, for Uninterrupted, which is our athlete empowerment brand, it started with athletes, but our production company, SpringHill Entertainment, was always about truly making shows with the most talented creators in the world who had a story to tell, who may not got a chance somewhere else or never thought about doing this or doing that. And then also empowering people through the content we create. And it's just come to life in every part of our business, from the brands we work with, like Chase, and creating something like Kneading Dough. We just launched this piece of content with Procter & Gamble, with Mark Pritchard and that wonderful team called These Hands, all the way to, as you talked about, Dreamland, to, we're in production on House Party and the director we chose. So we really have to believe it, and I talk about it every day, and then other people started talking about it every day in the company, and then it doesn't just become something we say, it becomes something we live, and it's reflective of the choices we make, the content we make, and how we bring our brands and IP to life, and it's now cut across everything we do.
Now let's dig in a little bit on SpringHill Entertainment. You're about to have your first big blockbuster tentpole come out in Space Jam, which my kids are very excited to see. LeBron is the star of this. It's the first time he's really the star of a film. What does this film mean for you as a company, and what can it tell us about maybe what's going to come next?
Yeah, I think the film is fantastic. It was, these big films, which was my first time ever working on a film this size and this scale, I've been saying it's not even like you're making a film, it's like you're building a company for one night, basically. You basically build a company over 3 or 4 years, and then you kind of, one night you let it go in the world, and that's kind of it. So, the team that worked on Space Jam, between the people at our company, Jamal, Spencer, and we got to work with Proximity, which is led by Ryan and Cindy Kugler, and the team at Warner Brothers, and our director, Malcolm Lee, and so many other people. Seeing these people come together and make this beautiful, fun movie that when you watch it, you're going to get this energy and fun for all people. It's just something amazing to me that I never imagined. And for us as a company, it's important because we're a company that creates feelings, and the main feeling we try and the thread that we try and pull through is empowerment. So this is a film that I believe that people will view and watch and leave with a feeling that's a good feeling, that's a good story. They'll feel empowered, they'll feel happy, they'll feel like they had fun. And it's really what we're about as a company, so it's very important to us as a company. It's important, obviously, to Warner Brothers, it's important to proximity, so it's very important to us.
And how do you feel about Warner Brothers putting it direct to consumer on HBO Max the same time it's in theaters, which is what it's doing with all the films this year?
What I believe about that, I think, they have to make the right decisions for their company. But I believe that when you make a film like this, like Space Jam, that's this great, this beautiful, you want as many people in the world to see it and have that feeling. So whatever they think is the best way to get they have the same interests we do, right? To many people in the world to see this movie and leave with a great feeling. So if they think that's the best way to get as many people to see it and a lot of people will see it, then I totally understand it. I also understand the business side, that is the future of business and streaming, and how do you build, I don't think theatrical releases are going away. I think big movies like Space Jam will work theatrically. I think this movie's going to do great theatrically, but I also think it'll do great in streaming, and I understand that's the future, and I'm totally into that.
And does this mean that LeBron is going to be looking at a career as a movie star post-basketball?
Listen, he's one of the most talented people to ever live. He has an ability to learn and apply. I always tell people I can learn fast, but sometimes it takes me a while to apply. He can learn and apply literally on the fly. So I think, it'd be up to him if he wants to be a movie star. Maybe he'll do a couple more movies, maybe not, I don't know. I think he likes the idea of being a movie star. I honestly think the work was more than he ever expected.
Fascinating. So you were talking about streaming and the rise of streaming, how this is the wave of the future. In the past year especially, we've seen Netflix rise, all these different companies that are really about this direct-to-consumer experience. For you, running a company that is producing content for all these platforms, do you have a preference for which kind of platform you're producing for? Do you want your shows on linear TV? Would you rather have them on streaming? What's your approach as the CEO of this company?
I don't have a preference. I think ultimately the type of content you make or are making at that time, and we make a lot of different things, documentaries, big movies, smaller movies, scripted shows, lots of unscripted shows. I think the content dictates where it should live, and the platforms and the distribution places like Netflix, like Amazon, like Disney now, like HBO Max, all of them, Amazon, I think I said them, there's a lot of them. They know what's best for their platforms and their places, but they're also still experimenting, right? Comcast, Universal, NBC just launched Peacock, so they're experimenting and seeing what works, and we're going to do a movie for them. So I think ultimately between what type of content you're making and the people whose job it is to run those places know best. But for me, in our seat as a company creating content and entertainment that we've created literally for all of them, literally, the content dictates it, and for us, it's about making sure as many people see the piece that we're making and they get the feeling that we want to invoke from them.
You're also producing short form content, branded content for these other platforms like Instagram, YouTube. And what I think is so interesting is this is a whole part of the business that people may not know about and may not know that you're in, but your clients include Uber, include some of the big financial, Procter & Gamble,
Nike, General Motors, Walmart, JP Morgan Chase, I'm sure I'm missing some, but that's part of the business that honestly, when we set up the SpringHill Company, it's honestly the world I come from. I didn't grow up in Hollywood. I didn't grow up wanting to make movies, wanting to make TV shows. I grew up at Nike, so my career was always from an understanding of brand storytelling and how do you really work with, and obviously Nike kind of invented telling athlete stories and substitute the word athlete for talent and creators, telling athlete and talent and creator stories to tell their story that also serves the brand and tells the story of the brand. That's the world I came from, and I, when we were setting up the company, I talked a lot about this. We as a company saw that brands were going that way, and I think it's, to my point, a year later for our company, it's went a lot faster than we thought. We're a content studio for content studio of record for Nike, working with Walmart and GM. In the same way, Procter & Gamble, creating pieces of content that really tell a story of empowerment through the lens of people, talent, creators, and really invoke a feeling, but also at the same time as telling a story about that brand. And we've created franchises with brands. Like we have Kneading Dough is now in its 4th or 5th season with JP Morgan Chase and Kristen Limcow, who was the CMO there, who greenlit that, really believed in it and believed in us and understood it. And we've done it now and expanded Kneading Dough into its podcast when the world gets back to normal, its live events, its experiences. So we've created content, brands, and IP literally with big brands through truly being partners, truly creating content, and truly telling stories.
And do you think that that business is going to continue to grow as brands struggle to reach consumers, as TV ratings decline, and it's harder to target people online with Apple making changes? I mean, is this going to be a big growth opportunity for you?
It's a gigantic growth opportunity for us, and I think the brands who are forward-thinking, who have leadership, who are not afraid to take chances and know the old cliche line, innovate or die, then yes, they're going to do it. Now I know a lot of them, and they're thinking that way, and they know they have to push into this space, because the bottom line is all of these big brands, they used to, and forever, kind of since the marketplace was invented, specifically here in America, but globally, obviously too, they used to make all these transactions, right? Like they would hire some people to create a commercial for them. That was a transaction. Then they'd go to a network and buy a piece of media. That was a transaction. Then they put their commercial up on the media channel. They'd hope we watched it, and then they'd hope we walk in the store or into their store or into a store and then transact. Well, those days are not over, but it's much more about, it's no longer all these minor transactions and then hoping the customer makes a transaction with you. It's now really about engaging members, right? So if you look at the big companies, right, and Netflix has led this, right? And Amazon, Disney's now doing it, Walmart's doing it, right? It's really about, we're a member, or even if brands are doing it, right? Nike has Nike Run Club, Nike Training Club, they have sneakers. You go there every day and engage. It doesn't mean you buy something every day, but I go on sneakers sometimes and just look around, watch the content there, and then transactions happen along the way. So brands that are really thinking about the future have to go from transacting with customers to engaging members, and the way you engage is through content.
And speaking of transacting with customers, you have a consumer products business. How much will you be focusing on that now? And is it a sort of crucial part of the content business as well, as you talk about these other, I mean, is it more of a separate thing, or do you think it's going to be really wrapped into the content business?
It is not a separate thing at all. And it's not a new idea, right? Disney's a $300 billion company, and that's the model that we see and like. We're doing it with a different mindset. Their word is happiness, our word is empowerment, because it's what we believe and what we live. But if you look at a show like that we've made, like The Shop, and now you look at The Shop as a brand, and when you watch the show, it's really about bringing people from different walks of life, different communities together to have a conversation. Doesn't mean they agree, they go back and forth, but a really open and honest conversation. So if you think about how do we then take The Shop as a brand and take that same feeling of community empowerment, bringing communities together, well then how does that look like? How does that come to life? Through products, through experiences, through events. So we're thinking about that, and it is a big part of our business, specifically the future of our business.
And so what are you going to sell? What's the product going to be?
We've not figured it out yet, but we've got a lot of things cooking. We've got a lot of thoughts. We're building a team within our company who will build this part of our business. But if you look at what we've done with More Than an Athlete, we've already done it. More Than an Athlete, we sold Air Force Ones, we licensed it to Nike, sold Air Force Ones, we sold hoodies on uninterrupted.com. We make a documentary for ESPN Plus called More Than an Athlete. So we have experience doing this. Now we just have to build it into a bigger part of our business.
And what's the future of the experience business now that we're coming out of the pandemic and you can start gathering people in person again? What does that look like?
I think the future of the experience business is where it's already headed, is really taking people into a place where they really get kind of engulfed into a whole experience. It's not just about buying something, it's not just about watching something, it's the whole thing. So if you think about what a company like Epic Games is doing, and really thinking about the future of like the metaverse. That is the future. Everything evolves, right? Everything moves forward. So if you think about what's the next iteration of the internet, like transportation evolved, right? Like, everything about how we live as humans, we're always evolving. So the internet has to evolve. So if you think about whether it's physical or digital, they're melding together into one, to where you'll be able to go back and forth between them very easily and be engaged as a member, as a part of this. If you see, obviously, what they did at Epic, they have games like Fortnite, obviously, they have the Unreal Engine, but then they did a concert with Travis Scott, right? So it's all about this kind of physical and digital, where soon we're not going to be able to tell the difference between either one.
So maybe there'll be a SpringHill metaverse.
Maybe.
So you have mentioned so many different companies in this conversation. You just mentioned Epic, Netflix, Disney. You're clearly looking at the landscape very broadly. Which are the companies that you most want to emulate? Is there a company that you sort of want SpringHill to be like in the future?
I think, the best part about that we have, and the advantage that we have is, to your point, we get to see what everyone else is doing. We're still small, we're tiny compared to those big behemoths, but we do something that they understand, they get, they like how we go about it, they like the people that work at our company, and they like our message and our story. So we've been able to carve out this little lane to drive, so we get a chance to see what they're all up to, see what the future, and kind of pick from all of them to build who we want to be and what we want to be and who we want to be. But I think, obviously, if you look at our sports brand, Uninterrupted, it's a lot of DNA from Nike, because that's where I grew up. I was an intern there, I learned there. It's a lot of from what I learned there. If you look at the SpringHill Company in totality, it starts to look and feel a lot like Disney if you look under the hood, because we all admire what Disney did and what Bob was able to do when Iger was the CEO, and bringing in Pixar and Marvel, and really keep building that content business, but also focusing on experiences and products. So, we're fortunate because of who we are in this space we've carved out. We get to work with all of them. Every company I've mentioned, we've worked with in some way. So we get to see what they're up to, hear what they're up to, and be a part of creating their future, but it also creates our future.
Right now you're on all of these different platforms. Can you ever imagine creating your own subscription service, making your own channel that's direct to consumer, and aggregating all your fans into one place like that?
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, we're already direct to consumer with our products. You can go on uninterrupted.com and buy our products. I mean, I think absolutely I could see us in the future maybe looking at that. I mean, it's a long way off for us now. Obviously, you see what the big companies do. They invest a lot of money. It takes a lot of money. But absolutely, I could see that in the future, some version of that for us in the future, and really staying in our lane and keeping our space carved out.
You have also sort of alluded to a lot of the consolidation that's happening in this space. The tech companies are buying media companies. Everything is coming together. And I'm wondering if you have been approached by any of these companies. There aren't many assets like SpringHill out there. Could you imagine selling 20 of these?
Thank you for saying there aren't many out there like us. We love what we're doing. We love the company we're building. We love the stories that we get to tell, the people that we get to work with. I think for us, it's truly about, if we were to look at something, some other partnership, anything that we do, it's always about, do we get to be on a bigger platform doing what we're doing? We want to continue and are going to continue doing what we're doing, empowering greatness in all individuals, empowering creators, empowering athletes. So we serve them. We serve the athletes, the talent, the writers, directors. We serve our brands like The Shop more than athletes. So if we had an opportunity to supercharge that or be on a platform that took that globally in an instant or in a way, we would have to take a look at that, absolutely.
Interesting. We'll have to see. I'm curious to get your perspective on the sports landscape right now. We've just gotten a bunch of direct-to-consumer streaming deals. ESPN Plus getting rights to stream more NFL, NHL games. You have the rise of these companies like DAZN. It just seems like a lot of content is going to move to streaming. What does that mean for you and the athletes that you work with?
I think for our brand, Uninterrupted, and the athletes that we are fortunate enough to work with and empower, that's good. That's great. I mean, we want the zone, we want the outside zone, we want them all to pop up, because it's more platforms, it's more people engaged, it's more money spent to truly empower and tell the athlete's story. And I think ultimately it's really truly doing what if you think about the metaverse, these big companies, what it's leaning towards is it's truly becoming about the creators, right? The people who actually create. That's what it's really about. Those are the people who should be capturing the most value.
Yeah, this sort of your access to this, the athlete part of the creator economy. Could you see doing more events that are outside the NBA with your athletes that you work with and creating more one-offs, that a different kind of content?
Yeah, well, we do events. I mean, we don't do sporting events. We're not in the live sports business or, league business. But we do events like at the last Super Bowl that people were allowed to attend, not the one in Tampa, the one in Miami. We had a great partnership with Oakley, where we did a more than a football player event, and it was all about our glass helmet that we created and allowing athletes to get up on a stage in a live event and storytell. It was hosted by Nate Burleson. I mean, we had Cam Newton, Jalen Ramsey, Tua Tagovailoa get up on stage and tell these amazing stories in the way that you would think of like a poetry night. And it's just a way, again, putting the value and letting them create and tell their stories and really empowering them. We will absolutely do more events like that.
Empowering athletes as creators, but maybe not hosting any individual sporting events.
No, that's not our space. That's not what, I love sporting events. I go to sporting events. I love watching, I was watching the Euro earlier today, soccer, basketball. I watch it all, boxing, but it's not our business. Our business is more around the outside and the edges and taking those athletes and really helping them tell their story so that when they play in their live sporting event, us as viewers and consumers watching it, we know more about them, we care more about them, which makes you even more into the live event.
Interesting. Now, in terms of caring about live events, we did see the NBA ratings drop over the last 2 years. Do you think that's a blip as a result of COVID? Do you think that's going to come back?
I don't know. I honestly don't follow ratings that close. So I haven't thought that much about it. I mean, I don't even know how much it dropped. I mean, you said I have no idea how much it dropped. Again, because I'm not in that business. Yeah. I might see it on the periphery of my life because I'm like reading sports stuff and watching sports stuff, but I don't track it. I don't know. I think probably had something to do with COVID. It probably had something to do with, the season so close. There was no real break, not enough time to miss it. Would be but I'm totally guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer.
So in terms of all the athletes you work with, do you think the NCAA changes about all the new things that those athletes are going to get to do? Is that going to give you a whole new bunch of people to work with?
Yeah, I mean, we work with NCAA athletes already because we're not, we don't represent anyone. We're not paying them. But I think ultimately, again, back to what I said, it's the same thing, but it's just a different level. We call it the NCAA, they're not pro, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. The power is in the hands of the talent, the creators, and the NCAA has held the power for so long just because they could. But it seems like those days are coming to an end, and they should.
And you really want to focus on shifting the power to the consumer. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure to get your thoughts on two things. One is the work you've done about voter registration and sort of where that energy is shifting now. You had a huge push to get the vote out ahead of the election, and it seems like you're not letting up on this work.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the SpringHill Company, one of our mantras is more than fill in your blank. It started as it still is the tagline, our version of just do it for uninterrupted, which is I'm more than an athlete. And then we use more than in many ways, and we called it more than a vote for a specific reason when we started kind of the charitable side of the SpringHill Company. And the reason was because forever, since black people could vote, even when our vote counted as, only a small percentage of a human, because we weren't considered full humans in this country for a while, politicians have rallied and got specifically the black vote, go to black churches, get the black turnout, and then black people vote, but things don't change. So we wanted to really, with more than a vote, it wasn't about who you were voting for, it was just about, listen, let's pull black people together to get them and help them understand this and understand what's going on. And obviously with the last election, it was such a big event, so polarizing, it was kind of easy to get people galvanized and talking, but we called it more than a vote because we said, listen, this has to be about more than just checking a box. Voting for something, we actually need things to change and be a part of that change.
Now, speaking of being part of that change, Juneteenth is coming up. On Saturday, it's been about a year since the Black Lives Matter movement prompted a number of big companies to make commitments to change, to embrace diversity, to change corporate practices. You sit on the board of a couple of companies and you have a sense of what's going on out there. Do you feel like things are changing? Are there companies that you think have made meaningful commitments?
I think the main thing these big companies have to watch out for is doing things that get a headline, but not really changing. So putting someone black on your board, and I sit on the board of a public company with a fantastic CEO who put me on the board actually long before the summer of George Floyd or before the Black Lives Matter movement came. I think I've been on the board since 2018. So he was already, he's a forward-thinking, I mean, I think you know Michael Rapino, he's very forward-thinking, very brilliant, smart CEO who I'm lucky enough to call a mentor. But he and I talk about this, and like, you can put black people on the board or even in high-level positions, but you really need black and brown people and women throughout the whole company, and you have to be not be afraid to be specific about it. Like, these roles we need to have black people, or these roles I want to have a woman in this role, because I always tell people the thing that kept black people out and the thing that kept women out was very specific. You know, there were clubs and businesses and this job that said a black person can't have this job, or a black person can't come to this club. So you can't be afraid to try and reverse that, to be specific and say, hey, this role I want a black person. So I think things hopefully will change. I'm being a part of it, but my main message to companies are, don't just put black people at the top of your company, put them all the way through, because that's how black people don't have this feeling of being stuck. In big companies, black people feel like they get to a certain level and get stuck. Well, that's because there's not black people throughout. There's no one right above them, not 4 levels above them, who grabs them and goes, hey, you want to go to this concert because we listen to the same music, or go to this event, and then get to know them and understand, hey, I should promote this person. Because the truth is, in a lot of companies, it may not even be racism, it's just human natural bias. We all have bias. So if there's a person who likes the same food I like, or likes the same music at work, or whatever, they're into sports, like I'm into sports, then I'm gonna hang out with that person more. So I may promote them and not promote the other person just because I don't know them. And that's bias, but the problem is it gets you the same results.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, before we wrap up, I'm just gonna give you a final question on your vision for SpringHill. 5 years from now, what does SpringHill look like?
I think 5 years from now, the SpringHill Company has empowered more talent and creators and found more talent and creators. That mission is serious, we do it. And the beautiful thing about our mission is it naturally leads us to what's next. So if we truly are into empowering talent and creators, there's a lot of household names that are talent and creators that are amazing, and we work with some of them, but they are empowering other people themselves. So we actually have to find the next great director, the next great writer, the next great athlete, because that's our job, that's in our DNA, that's in our mission. So I think we're going to continue to do that in a bigger way. I think our platform is going to get bigger. I think we're going to figure out ways to bring our brands to life in more than just content. When you think about the shop, I think 5 years the shop will still be a TV show and a show that you can watch and understand what it's about, but it'll also be an experience that you can come into. It'll be products that you can feel and get that same feeling that you get when you watch the show.
Well, we hope you'll continue to come back and talk to us about all of your company's growth. Maverick Carter, CEO of SpringHill, thank you so much for talking to us
Thank you for
today.
having me. I appreciate it.